by Srimati Kanchan Gogateji. The paper is on the aspect of revelation in our Shastras and how the aspect of revelation creates a different perspective than the Western approach. For those who do not know, there are many approaches in the postmodern and contemporary theories of poetics. How our approach of revelation contradicts these contemporary Western theories is the topic that Kanchanji is going to deal with now. Kanchanji, please start.
Namaste to one and all. This is also a work in progress. So I would just like, this is not a complete framework. It is just part of my PhD studies. I'm pursuing my PhD on the speeches of Swami Vivekananda and Jiddu Krishnamurti under English literature. And in general, in English literature, we can see the theory of literary criticism. It is mainly talking about the four things: reader, context, author, and the text. So I thought if each literary theory emerges from the tradition. If Swami Vivekananda is so much rooted into the Indian tradition, so there are so many modern thinkers like Aurobindo, so many like him. So why not develop a framework which is where we can say Navinji, Dr. Naveen Bhaji has used the word Vedic consciousness. So it is not exactly that I am drawing technical concepts from Sanskrit poetics or Indian aesthetics, but I am trying to take the gist of it or borrow certain concepts and develop a framework which would be applied to the speeches of Swami Vivekananda and Jiddu Krishnamurti. And here I will be presenting a very small part of my framework, which is writing the reader. Now we can say literary criticism after so many years in this era, postmodern era, it is talking about that the text should be reader centric. It is not, author is not important, the context of the text is not important, but reader rewrites the text. When I'm reading certain poetry, Wordsworth or even maybe any Sanskrit poet, he meant something else, but when I read it today, I can interpret it in my own way as a reader. So is this something new? We can say it is relatively a new concept in literary criticism, but I think Vedas have answered this long time years ago, because what are we calling revelations? Revelations are really reader centric because there is no author to it. Next slide, please. Yes, so we can see that the postmodern, Nagarajji has in lecture nicely elaborated on what is called our postmodern and post-colonial era. And I think whenever panelists and attendees have the opportunity, you can please interact with him on the very term, what is the meaning of postmodern, because he elaborates on it very nicely. But generally what we call post-independence, postmodern and post-colonial area, they are talking about religious discourse. They are challenging it. They say now after the death of the God, what theology are we talking about? But at the same time, we can see that there is an attempt to develop a secular discourse. So it should not be Hindu or Islamic or Christian, but they are just saying we just want to draw the best, the metaphysical side of each and every religion and develop a secular framework. But a question that I want to ask, if you are drawing anything from that tradition, you need to go to the root of that tradition, understand the ethos, and then whatever you can name it secular, you can call it transcendental, metaphysical, but you cannot just do away with the tradition. So here we can say in each and every religion, revelation has always been there. But here the revelation we are talking about is different. The Vedic revelations are different from biblical revelations or prophetic revelations. Here we are saying revelations as a knowledge which is non-contingent, which was expressed. There is no revealer, but there is only revelation. Next slide, please. So here, instead of calling it Hinduism as such, I would prefer to call it religion of Vedas. So this religion of Vedas is rooting its religiosity into the Vedas. And what are these Vedas? Again, that is very interesting. We can go to the Shayanacharya's commentaries. He is giving us many definitions of Vedas. So by Vedas, fundamentally, no books are meant. Vedas is not a particular dogma or any particular kind of philosophy, but all that different streams which can see in Hindu thought process, they are basically rooted into the Vedas. So it is a very non-prophetic religion. It is not based on any particular book. Definitely, Bhagavad Gita is our revered book, but there are so many books in and all find their origin in Vedas. And here I would be elaborating only on one concept, which is called apaurushaya. Naveen Bhaji and my previous speakers, they have also elaborated a bit on revelation as well and apaurushayatva as well. I would just like to interpret it in modern literary theory light, which is called reader response criticism, which I have already elaborated upon. That is meant by reader-centric criticism, where reader is important, what text is saying and how reader is interpreting is more important than who is saying it. But this apaurushaya concept is really, really startling. It is giving us so many insights about the revelations and so many wonderful insights, and we do not know the authors. And here I want to mention it very categorically that the term revelation I'm using particularly in the context of Vedas and in Indian textual and philosophical tradition. I'm not referring to any John's revelation, any biblical revelation, or maybe any revelation about Islamic revelation. So this is revelation only in Vedas. Next slide. So as I won't be elaborating much because I have already said that this is a part, it is a work in progress. It is a part of my framework, which I'm developing. It is called Hermeneutics of Self-Enquiry, which I have based on Jnana Yoga. Maybe Ramana Maharshi had popularized that approach, who am I? So based on that approach, I'm developing that framework under the frame of literary criticism. I'm drawing certain concepts from Indian textual tradition, orality tradition, Jnana Yoga, and also taking some clues from Western literary criticism. Next slide, please. Next slide. So let us come to this apaurushaya concept. What does apaurushaya means? It's just impersonal, authorless. There is no author human. But what is startling about the Vedas also, we are also ruling out the possibility of divine author. So our revelations, they are not just written by any human being. They are not revealed by gods also. We are talking about the knowledge that always existed, like Newton's law of gravitation. Newton did not invent gravitation. That is universal. But Newton discovered it. So the same way, this is the highest truth. Our rishis, our revered rishis happened to discover it. And we are talking about that knowledge where revealer is not important, but what is being revealed, what is being said is more important. In that sense, Vedas are apaurushaya. So this apaurushaya is not just, we cannot take literal meaning, but that is, we can see scholars are now working a lot on this concept, and they have tried to relate this concept in Mimamsa, which is the hermeneutics on interpreting the Vedas and Vedic rituals. So Mimamsa philosophy of language and this apaurushaya concept are, I think, quite interlinked. So when Purushottam Bilimoria, who is a scholar on Indian philosophy of language, he says that Vedic words have their own meaning, and this meaning is not dependent on any author. So in that sense, we say Shabda Pramana. The Shabda Pramana, the words are important, the Shabda and their meaning is important, but the speaker is not important. In that sense, Vedas are apaurushaya. Next slide. Yes. Then Bilimoria ji is also saying that text is depersonalized in respect. In literary criticism, there is a concept of intentionality of the author. What is the purpose of the author behind this text? So here Vedas are completely doing away with personal intentionality here, but there is, he is saying there is intentionality is important for the Vedas, but it is in the sense of tatparya. So here tatparya is again what it is, the intentionality which is not depending on the person, but it is the intentionality or what is being revealed, what is being said. Then M. Hiriyanna, he is a doyen of Indian aesthetics, and he is relating this concept of apaurushaya with the Shruti tradition. Even I think we require lifetime to study each and every concept. So the very concept of Shruti are the words which were never spoken but were heard. And of course, there could be controversy that Shruti means words that were being heard, but some concepts are also saying that words that were not spoken, that were not uttered by any particular human being, but the words, it is about the knowledge which always existed, and what is being heard, what is being revealed, that is being said in the Vedas. So M. Hiriyannaji, he is locating this in Shruti tradition, and what he says that Shruti is a very social institution, and this highest revelations of the truth that must be made public, that cannot be kept personal. That way, Vedas are apaurushaya, because these revelations, our rishis have made these revelations public without keeping the bringing their personalities, without bringing their personalities into, without not bringing their personalities into light. Next slide, please. So, how it is related to Mimamsa philosophy of language? Another famous Indian philosopher, J.N. Mohanty, who is also the, we can say, father of Indian phenomenology, he says that the apaurushaya concept shows that Indian textual tradition is ahistorical and atemporal. Like we have said, this is a non-contingent knowledge, the knowledge which has always been there, that did not come into the existence by any divine agency or any personal agency, but Anubhava Pramana, Shabda Pramana, the Pramanas from where Nyaya system is talking about valid means of knowledge. So what it is showing, the apaurushaya, it is in a sense that knowledge has always been there. Any particular person did not happen to discover, invent it, but we have always discovered the highest truth. And therefore, this Vedas are by which no books are meant, and Vedas are beyond time and beyond space. So therefore, Vedas are ahistorical and atemporal. Then Jomini's Utpatika Sutra, he says that correlation between Shabda and Artha is original. Means it's like just chicken and the egg. Which came first, we cannot say. Even so, there is so many advancements in the theory of language, and they are also showing that language, we just happen to discover. Language is not really a human invention. Maybe it was present in human brain in different form. We happen to get some words which express, we happen to express it to the words, but language is really not human invention. Like the knowledge has always been there. In that sense, we can say that the correlation between Shabda and Artha is originally, they are very much interlinked. We cannot say like chicken and the egg which came first, whether Shabda came first or Artha came first. And here we can say Shabda and Artha are, they are very universal, and they cannot be attributed to any particular individual. In that sense, Vedas are apaurushaya. Next slide, please. There is one very interesting book written by another very great Indian philosopher, K. Sachidananda Murthy. The book's name is Reason and Revelation in Advaita Vedanta. Here he is giving from Advaita Vedanta point of view, what is the reasoning why Vedas are apaurushaya. So first he is giving the point of view of Vachaspati. He says that it is goes back to the very definition of Advaita. Advaita is not one, but Advaita means no tools. So words uttered by no two can be identical. So there is no independent author to the Vedas. The truth that is being revealed is one. Vedas are all about conscious witness. They are all about Sakshi. They are about the Brahman. So they are talking about one reality, and one has become that many. So these revealers just happen to be the instruments to express it. There is no personality attached to any revelation. But revelation is more important, and it is only about the one truth, which is Brahman, and therefore Vedas are apaurushaya. Then secondly, Sachidananda Murthy is giving us Vivarna school. What it is saying, Paurushaya means any particular opinion of the author. So why Vedas are apaurushaya? Because Vedas are not the opinion of any author, and it is very important to say Vedas, it is not even the opinion of God. It is just the truth as it is. It is non-contingent. It is universal. Then Shayanacharya, in his commentaries on Vedas, in very much in Rigveda, he says, what makes Veda apaurushaya? It is the absence of human utterance that makes Vedas apaurushaya, because we can relate it to the first one, what Vachaspati ji has said, that Brahman is the sole cause of Veda. They are talking about only one reality. So here Vedas are apaurushaya because Brahman itself is apaurushaya. It is without any attributes. Brahman doesn't have a personality. Nirguna Brahman, the definition that we have already know. And the fourth, Sachidananda Buddhiji giving us the fourth aspect of apaurushayatva of Vedas is in the Vedanta Paribhasha. It says between the creation and dissolution, Veda remains without generation and destruction. So Vedas, the revelations have always been there. They are universal. They are not bound by time. They are not bound by space. So Vedas is more of a philosophy. They are the revelations of the highest truth, which are very ahistoric, like and atemporal. What Jain Mohanty has told us earlier. Next slide, please. So here also I'm talking about this apaurushaya and reader response criticism. And if we try to relate it to the two, it is not a comparative study per se. What I'm not doing a very philosophical study or comparative study, but we can just draw the parallels. Then we can see that there is a very famous essay by French literary critic Ronald Barthes. He's talking about the death of the author, and death of the author is marked by the birth of the reader. So here similarly the Barthes are also drawn from Friedrich Nietzsche, where he is talking about death of the god. So Francis Cudi is saying that new theology, which is talking about whatever we have said, it could be secular, or they are talking about the metaphysical side of the religion. So they are asking, they are not questions are not anymore being asked about the creator or the god. Now the scholars are asking the question in new theology that what kind of theology we can do after the death of the god. But here he says, Francis X. Cluny, he is a Harvard scholar and he is also expert in Purva Mimamsa. He has written many books. And here he is saying that Vedas have answered this question thousands of years ago, the question which is being raised by modern scholars, what kind of theology are we doing because after death of the god? Because Vedas particularly have no creator, there is no author. It is very important statement which I have quoted. People do not invent their rituals, nor the author of their sacred texts, says Mimamsa. And he is also giving his reasoning, which is according to Mimamsa, because he is saying Vedas are apaurushaya mainly because Vedas have no author nor human. Because if it is human, then to is human, then there's revelations maybe are as infallible as human beings are. And secondly, if there are divine authors, how can we express any divinity in human language? So that way Vedas are using author as an instrumentality, as a catalyst to express themselves, but they are apaurushaya in that sense. Next slide, please. And this is here I come to my last slide. I did not include everything which is part of my framework here, because given the paucity of time also, and it will take too much of time to explain everything. But my framework is called hermeneutics of self-enquiry. So what is this hermeneutics of self-enquiry? It is interpreting the text. So from the Jnana Yoga point of view, the Jnana Yoga is asking us the question, investigating into what it is worth knowing. Swami Vivekananda says that this question comes back to us again and again. Moreover, we are trying to find out from the external world, the more we are talking about science, technology, and this external world, and we are trying to find out what this universe is made up of, more and more we again come back to this question, what it is worth knowing, whether it is the external universe or whether it is turning inward. And the answer has already been given by the Vedic revelations thousands of years ago. So what is the self-enquiry in Advaita Vedanta, which I have also earlier explained? Ramana Maharshi, so many times when visitors came to him, I think gist of his was only one, who am I?
I think you are towards winding it, right?
short of time. Okay, okay. No, I can end it here. No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. No, no, please don't end.
Uh,
Just please wind up and quickly come to the conclusion. It's a good paper. We need the points, but
yeah.
maybe you can quickly run through the remaining slides. Or
No, no, no. It is the last slide by the way. This is the last slide.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. So here I have taken what it is worth knowing, and I think here you can see all the points, and the answer of each and every question is what it is worth knowing, whether your internal nature or the external universe. And I think everything is there before the audience. This is how I am drawing Apaurushaya of the Vedas becomes very important concept in my framework of hermeneutics of self-inquiry. Yeah, thank you.
Kanchanji, this is a very important paper because this makes the whole discussion very contemporary. And why I was mentioning postmodern was the whole discussion in the postmodern comes from a response to new criticism, which was making text center, and then they started coming up with ideas of the death of the author during new criticism, and then the death of the text itself, because then the whole reader centric thing makes it multiple meanings and all that. So this is post structural and postmodern. That is why this brings actually there are quite a few discussions about how the Vyakarana theory, this Spota theory of Bhartrhari, has some similarities with the postmodern approach, and there are discussions of how post-structuralism and Spota theory, they have some similarities, and through that route we can reach the reader-centric approach and the revelation. And the ideas of revelation, as you rightly said, are different from the Abrahamic ideas of revelation. Thank you very much for this paper.